uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable life. There are times when a decision needs to be made. Either you are going to have an uncomfortable conversation or you're going to hold it in inside and you're going to live an uncomfortable life. An uncomfortable conversation is sometimes needed to verbally express different viewpoints, to put it out there, and to allow both parties to understand the perspective of others. And then even though there may be a moment of discord, a moment of being uncomfortable, that will birth growth and healing. The opposite, if you hold it in, there will be a lifetime of resentment. You will live an uncomfortable life. Two choices: uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable life. Leaders have to have sometimes uncomfortable conversations. Now, the key is, as a leader, you have to establish an environment where all parties feel safe, even parties that disagree with you. And you have to have an environment where the objective is for solutions and for healing and growth. Okay? Because you can't just have a conversation where it's a blame game, or a conversation where it's, I want to prove I'm right. And sometimes, and many times, in an uncomfortable conversation, it's not one of those things that gets resolved instantly. It's one of those things where you have to have the conversation. Both parties need to digest the other perspective, and it's going to take a little bit of time for there to be a level of mutual understanding and harmony. But the purpose of the uncomfortable conversation is it has to get out there. It has to be expressed. There is an issue, a topic, a subject that needs addressing. If it does not get addressed, if it is not verbalized, there is an undercurrent, there is a rip current in your being that will birth resentment, side remarks, and disrespect. Because there's an unresolved issue. There's something underneath the belly of someone's being that isn't being expressed, and it hasn't been communicated. Uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable life is a key component. The problem is, the reason why it's a hard thing is because an uncomfortable conversation, it's uncomfortable. And it's not resolved right away. It takes a little bit for people to kind of hear each other out. And that's why many people try to go with the uncomfortable life. But the problem with that is eventually you just can't take it anymore and you explode. So all I can say is, as a leader, remember that yes, sometimes you do have to have an uncomfortable conversation, but you have an obligation to set a tone and an environment that all parties feel safe, and that the purpose of the uncomfortable conversation is not to cause contention. The purpose of the uncomfortable conversation is so that all people can be heard in respect, and solutions can be worked on for growth and for healing. Because as a leader, an uncomfortable life for you or for those around you is not what you want to, is not where you want to lead people. You want to lead people to sometimes have the uncomfortable conversation, but you have an obligation to lead. Okay? Never forget that, all right? Uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable life. And always remember this too. Always remember this. The uncomfortable conversation has to start with you. Okay? You have to be honest with yourself. You have to ask yourself, are you being fair? You have to ask yourself, are you trying to see things through the other person's perspective? And are you communicating yourself in the proper tone and in the proper way? The first person you have to have an uncomfortable conversation with is yourself. Then you can go ahead and proceed to have an uncomfortable conversation with others. You lead by example. Never forget it. Stay inspired.